Don't be afraid of change. Embrace it. She lost everything: money, marriage, status. But that wasn't the real collapse. The real collapse was when she realized she had built her whole life on the fear of change. And now she had nothing left to cling to but the truth. Isabelle had always been in control. She was the kind of woman who never asked for help, never waited for permission, and certainly never believed in things she couldn't touch, calculate, or conquer. Her schedule was a weapon, her words sharp and surgical, her world orderly, just the way she liked it. She ran a company with hundreds of employees. Her name meant power, prestige, progress. People feared her in the boardroom and envied her outside it. She was married to a man equally ambitious, had a penthouse in the city, and friends who praised her success, at least when she was in the room. But success has a quiet arrogance, and karma has a quiet memory. It began with a whisper. A deal went wrong. A partner she trusted embezzled funds. The market shifted. The cracks she never noticed started to grow. In just 6 months, her empire collapsed. She lost her company. Then her husband left, cold, efficient, as if dissolving a business agreement. Her so-called friends, gone. Some stopped replying. Some forwarded her old emails to journalists. Betrayal came not in knives, but in silence. Now, Isabelle sat in the back seat of her cousin's car, headed to a Buddhist monastery 2 hours outside the city. Not by choice. Just a few days, her cousin said, "You need peace," or something like it. She hated every minute of it. She arrived with bitterness in her throat. The monk at the gate smiled and bowed, but she didn't return the gesture. She looked around at the stone paths, the robes, the flowers. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "I don't need incense. I need justice." She met the head monk later that evening. He was in his 70s, quiet, with a face like the side of a mountain, weathered, unmoved by storms. She sat across from him with folded arms. "Let's skip the metaphors. I don't believe in karma, and I'm not here for life advice. I'm just waiting for things to fix themselves." The monk poured her tea, then said softly, "Then we'll sit and drink and wait with you." "No sermons?" she asked. "Only if you listen." "I'm not here to listen." "I know," he said. "That's why life brought you here." She clenched her jaw. "People like me don't sit in temples. We rebuild. We get up." The monk smiled again. "Then get up." She didn't move, because deep inside she knew she had nowhere else to go. The next morning she wandered the grounds. The air was cooler than the city. She noticed the birds, the way leaves fell with no rush. It irritated her. She passed by a small courtyard and saw a boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old, drawing quietly in the dirt. He was alone, barefoot, with a peaceful expression on his face. Later, the monk told her, "That is Samuel. He does not speak. He lost his voice when his mother left him here." "What happened to her?" Isabelle asked. She was afraid of the life he reminded her of, so she chose another one. Isabelle didn't comment, but something inside her stirred. Over the next few days, she kept running into Samuel. At the kitchen, the garden, the temple steps. He never spoke, but he always smiled. One afternoon, Isabelle finally asked the monk, "Why is he always around me?" "Maybe," the monk replied, "because you speak too much, and he speaks not at all." She laughed bitterly. "So now you're teaching me through a child?" "No," he said gently. "He is teaching you." She scoffed. "This is nonsense. I built companies. I survived lawsuits, global markets, backstabbers. I don't need lessons in humility from a child who doesn't speak." The monk looked at her, still smiling. "And yet, You lost everything, and you're still angry at a world that changed without asking you. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay awake listening to the wind rustling the trees, and in the silence, she heard something she hadn't heard in years. Her own mind. It was not kind. It replayed the betrayals, the moments she snapped at her staff, the days she ignored her husband, the time she told her little sister, "Don't be weak like Mom," and slammed the phone down. She hadn't spoken to her sister in 6 years. The next morning, she sat alone in the same courtyard where Samuel had been. The boy came again, carrying a flower he'd picked. He held it out to her. Isabelle hesitated. Then, for the first time since arriving, she smiled. He placed the flower in her hand and walked away. She sat there for hours, not waiting, just sitting. When the monk passed by later, he said, "Flowers do not fear the seasons. They change because it is time." She looked up. "What if I don't know how to change?" "Then let go of who you think you are," he answered, "and meet who you might become." For the first time, Isabelle didn't argue, because deep inside, she knew the woman she had been was already gone. Let me know if you'd like me to continue with Part 2's full narration, 1,000 words, or if you want me to help design YouTube titles, captions, or thumbnails for this video series. The days passed quietly. Isabelle no longer checked her phone. Not because she had found peace, but because there were no emails to answer, no calls to return. Silence wasn't something she welcomed. It was something she couldn't avoid. She still didn't chant, still didn't bow. But something had changed. Each morning she found herself watching Samuel. He didn't speak, didn't seek attention. But he moved with a kind of grace she didn't understand, gentle, deliberate. He smiled easily, and when he played with leaves or chased butterflies, it was as if the entire world had paused to join him. One morning, she asked the monk, "Why does he smile so much if he's been abandoned?" The monk replied, "Because he stopped asking why and started accepting what is." She frowned. "That sounds like giving up." "No," the monk said. "It's giving in to the present, and from there we grow." Isabelle shook her head. "If I had accepted everything, I would have been crushed. People walked all over me. I had to fight to survive." "And in the end, did you survive?" he asked gently. She didn't answer. Later that afternoon, she found Samuel sitting near the garden, drawing shapes in the dirt with a twig. For reasons she couldn't explain, she sat down beside him. After a while, he handed her the twig. She hesitated, then drew a square. He added a triangle on top, making it a house. Then he smiled. She didn't know why, but her eyes welled up. "I used to live in a house like that," she whispered. "Big windows, gold handles on the doors. Everything was perfect on the outside." Samuel looked up at her, still silent, but present. So deeply present it almost hurt. "I yelled a lot," she admitted. "At my staff, my husband, even my little sister." She hadn't said her sister's name out loud in years. "Grace," she whispered. "She begged me to come home when Mom was sick. But I was busy. Too busy building a future to say goodbye." Samuel reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. That evening, Isabelle went to the monk with her voice low and eyes tired. "How do I stop being angry at the world?" The monk poured tea. "By realizing the world was never trying to hurt you, it was trying to wake you." "Wake me to what?" "That everything you cling to is temporary," he said. "Titles, money, people, even your own reflection. None of it is truly yours. Only what you give away freely remains. She stayed quiet, then asked, "Why is Samuel still here? Why didn't someone adopt him?" "He has been offered homes," the monk replied, "but he refuses to leave. He says in his own way that this place is enough." Isabelle exhaled slowly. "I used to want more than enough. And now, I don't even know what enough is." "Enough," the monk said, "is when the heart stops grasping." That night, Isabelle dreamt of her old office. She was standing at her desk, giving orders, commanding the room. But when she turned around, no one was listening. The chairs were empty. The lights flickered. Her voice echoed back at her, cold and sharp and meaningless. She woke up crying. At sunrise, she walked to the Bodhi tree and sat in silence. Samuel found her there. He sat beside her and rested his head on her shoulder. She didn't move. Later that day, she asked the monk, "Can people really change without losing everything?" The monk looked at her with deep stillness in his eyes. "Some do, but most of us only open our hands once they are empty." She looked away. "Then maybe I needed to lose everything." "Maybe," the monk nodded. "You didn't lose anything. Maybe you were just being returned to yourself." The next morning, Isabelle found Samuel waiting for her with a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing of her and him under the Bodhi tree. She touched the image, then looked at him. "Thank you." For a moment, she thought he might speak. He didn't, but his silence said more than words ever could. That afternoon, the monk gave her a lotus seed in a tiny pouch. "Plant it," he said, "when you're ready. Not to grow something, but to remember something." She nodded. "What should I remember?" "That nothing blossoms before it breaks open." That night, she sat in her room and wrote a letter. It was simple, raw. "Grace, I don't know if you'll want to hear from me, but I'm sorry for not being there, for being someone you couldn't lean on. I lost Mom. I lost you. And now I realize I never lost anything more valuable than that. If you'll let me, I want to begin again. Isabelle." She didn't send it. Not yet. But for the first time in years, she meant it. It was raining the day Grace arrived. Not the kind of storm that shakes rooftops, but the soft, steady kind that makes the world feel like it's exhaling. Isabelle had just finished sweeping the temple courtyard. She had grown used to the rhythm of this place, the way time didn't chase her here, the way silence no longer frightened her. Samuel ran past her, holding a small wooden bird he had carved. He smiled at her, and she smiled back. Then she saw her. Grace stood at the entrance, wet hair, tear-streaked cheeks, a folded letter in her hand. For a moment, neither sister moved. They had not seen each other in 6 years. Not since that final phone call. Not since Isabelle had said, "You're too emotional. I'm done wasting time." Now, time had brought her back. Isabelle stepped forward, but not too fast. She didn't want to scare the moment away. Grace held out the letter. "You mailed this?" Isabelle nodded. "I didn't think you'd come." "I didn't think I would either," Grace said. "Until last night. I read it again and I believed you." They sat together under the wooden awning as the rain whispered around them. "I hated you," Grace admitted. "Not just for missing Mom's last breath, but because you made me feel small every time I cried." "I hated myself too," Isabelle said, "for needing everything to be perfect, for thinking control made me strong." Grace looked at the temple garden. "I never imagined you here." "I didn't either." Isabelle smiled faintly. "But life doesn't ask what we imagine. It just changes. Samuel appeared beside them, holding a second carved bird. He gave it to Grace. She blinked. "Who's this?" Isabelle placed her hand gently on Samuel's shoulder. "This is the boy who taught me how to stop fighting the present." Grace watched the child for a moment. "He doesn't speak?" "No," Isabelle said, "but he listens better than anyone I've ever met." They sat for a long time in silence. Later that evening, Isabelle asked the head monk, "Why do I still feel afraid? Even now, after everything?" The monk replied, "Because real change isn't about becoming someone new. It's about letting go of who you were, without knowing who you'll become next." She nodded. "But what if I still miss the old me sometimes?" He smiled, then bowed to her, thank her, and keep walking. That night, Isabelle stood alone at the lotus pond. The moon shimmered across the water. Raindrops kissed the surface and disappeared. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the lotus seed the monk had given her weeks ago. She knelt by the earth, not as a powerful woman, not as a broken one, just as herself. She dug a small hole, placed the seed in it, and whispered, "I'm ready." Behind her, Grace stood watching. She didn't interrupt. She didn't need to. Change was happening, gently, deeply, without drama. The next morning, Isabelle rose early and walked to the kitchen. She helped prepare breakfast, carried tea to the elders, and taught Samuel how to fold paper birds. Grace stayed too, not to visit, just to be. They began speaking again, one word at a time. Not everything was fixed, but something sacred had begun. Weeks later, as Isabelle prepared to leave the monastery, the head monk handed her a piece of cloth. Inside it was a small wooden carving of a lotus. "You came here seeking to rebuild the past," he said. "But you leave with something better, the courage to walk forward without it." She bowed deeply. "How will I know if I've truly changed?" "You won't," he answered, "but the people you meet will feel it." Samuel hugged her tightly, still silent, still smiling. When she and Grace reached the city, it was no longer home. But it wasn't a battlefield either. They moved into a modest apartment, began volunteering at a shelter, and every Sunday, they made time for tea and stories. One evening, while walking past a bookstore, Isabelle saw a poster in the window. "Author Talk, Grace Everett, Letters to My Sister, Healing After Silence." She turned to Grace, eyes wide. "You wrote this?" Grace grinned. "I needed to say the things we never did, for you, for me, for others like us." Isabelle walked inside, bought the first copy. When she opened it, the dedication read, "To my sister Isabelle, who proved that change isn't weakness. It's the deepest form of strength." Tears filled her eyes, and in that moment, she realized something. She hadn't lost herself. She had simply come home. Have you ever returned to someone you thought you'd lost forever? Did they change? Or did you? Can people who once caused you pain ever truly deserve a second chance? Or is forgiveness more about freeing yourself than fixing the past? The life you want is waiting for you. But first, you must release the one you're clinging to. Have you ever resisted change, only to realize later that it was exactly what you needed? What woke you up? Share your story below. Do people really change? Or do they just adjust temporarily when life pushes them? Be honest. Can true transformation happen without pain? Isabelle was beginning to see herself again. But the past wasn't done with her. Because one day, the door opened, and someone she thought she'd lost forever walked in.